And here we are again with Alexios Zavras, who is Chief Open Source Compliance Officer at Intel, and will give us a speech about advancing transparency in software. Alexios, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I should start by thanking and congratulating again SPDXv3 for a wonderful offer, another wonderful conference here. So I'll be talking about the SPDX version 3, in case you haven't heard. A few words about me. I'm Greek, as you can tell by the name. I'm living in Munich. I'm the Chief Open Source Compliance Officer for a large American company you've probably heard of. I'm working at the OSPO there, the Open Source Program Office. I'm doing open source since before many of you were born, definitely. And I've been doing work for SBOM and SPDX, which I'm going to be talking about since, wow, many years ago. Right. I'll be talking a lot and I'll be talking fast because this is something that really excites me and I'm usually like that and I usually have 45 minutes to talk and I want to compress things. So yeah, please come after me, come after and talk to me because things might not be very clear here. Right. So I'm going to be talking about SBOMs. SBOMs are the software bill of materials. The whole idea is that the SBOM is a list of what is included inside a piece of software, right? And it also shows some supply chain relationships. So it might say, hey, these are the libraries and the modules that are inside this piece of software that I'm giving you, but also these are components that are needed for the software to run. You have to have this installed in your machine and all this stuff. Components, when we're talking about components, they can be libraries, modules, they can be open source or proprietary licensed, they can be freely available or paid, we don't care, right? Everything will be there. And the whole idea is that we want to have the data describing all these pieces of software, right? And this actual data can be public or widely distributed, or you can keep it private, right? We're not talking about that. So this need started from, and you've seen this wonderful XKCD comic, right? Most of people and organizations and companies do not know what they're actually running, right? They have some software that it's run, and it's a black box for them, and there is a pool a random person in Nebraska maintaining one library that you depend on, right? So besides the need to know, regulation is coming, was coming, is already here now, right? In the US, there was the executive order in May 2021 that says, yes, we should know what's inside the software. Then in the National Cybersecurity Implementation Plan a couple of years ago, CRA was mentioned many times today, that, yeah, you need to know what's inside the software in order to know your risks. And there are different countries, like Germany or Japan, who have already passed, and India should be in there. They have passed local laws and regulations that people should know about their software. So SPDX, I'm going to be talking a little about the background and then presenting what happened essentially this year, which we have some great news. So the whole idea of SPDX was a project that started by the industry to collect information in a machine-readable way, right? And the whole idea was that we want to have it as a descriptive text, right? Of descriptive data of what is inside. We want to be flexible because somebody wants a format X and somebody wants a different format, and we cannot be bound to a single format. And we want to be accurate, so we focus on facts and not interpretations, right? So we're not talking about, conflicts of license and stuff like that, which might introduce an interpretation thing. We're only talking about facts. There is this thing under this license and that thing under the other license. It's widespread, industry support for SPDX, lots of companies that I've put logos in there. I've collected written permission for all logos in here, so we don't just put logos in there. All these companies really want to be affiliated and associated with SPDX. We're a project which is completely open, and we have a public governance. So anyone is allowed to contribute. We're completely transparent. We do all our work, online and in meetings and in GitHub. And, we accept everyone. Please come and join. I'll be talking about that later. Let me skip ahead. The whole history of SPDX, we started around 2010, where some people inside the industry said, I want to give you the list of what's inside my software. You want to give me the list of what's inside the software. Let's standardize the way so that we do not, we're all using the same thing, right? And then that's how the effort started. And we have, we're starting explaining this. We started collecting more and more input. We produced the first SPDX version 2 was produced around the end of 2020, and then it started the long path to become an ISO standard, and it became an ISO standard in 2021. Then we worked more on interoperability with other formats, and then in 2023 we started a major revision, and I'm good to be talking about this one. Here is the version 3 of SPDX, right? So the software has a strikeout line there, which is not very clear, but we're talking more about system now, package data exchange, because as you probably understand, we're not talking about software anymore. In our world, AI was there. I'll be talking more about that. So in SPDX version 2, our view was pretty well defined and easy to understand. There was a document which had sections, and on top of it we had yep, that's it. Here, right, good. So we had package information, file information, snippet information, and then we have license information and all this stuff. And all of it, you put it in a document. Right. In SPDX3, we did a major restructuring of the whole thing. We refactored things into what we call core and profiles. And profiles are for each area of interest. And we're not only talking about exchange. Initially, it was, I want to tell you what's inside the software, but it's also for our own use, right? So how do we store it and how do we process it locally, not only for this? And it was released finally sometime before summer. Now it's on its way to become an ISO standard, the updated version of the ISO standard. I'm planning next week to finalize the PDF and send it off. So SPDX version 3, and I don't expect everyone to understand this diagram, but it's graph-based data, right? So we're talking about components that are connected to other components that are dependent on other components and stuff like that. So forget this simple idea of a single document that contains all the information, and we're talking about graph data, right? And as I mentioned, we have different profiles, and we have already, license security built in AI, and we are working on safety profile, operations, SaaS, and hardware, right? So the published profiles that we have already done, and they're going to be in the version to be released, is starting from the bottom is the core, which defines what is an object and what is, a component and abstract things like that. Then we're talking about software. This is a package, this is a component, and the package may have, authors, and you may have files and stuff like that. Then we're talking about licensing. What is the license of each piece of things that we're talking about? SPDX Lite is a very small subset, very convenient for the supply chain. And it's started from lots of people doing great work in Japan, and it's very used in the mainly in the auto industry there, but most of the industry exchanging in the software supply chain there, right? And then we started touching other things that were definitely out of scope for SPDX version 2. So we're talking about data. right now, when I give you a software, a modern software, which is AI-enabled based, or whatever you want to call it, right? You have to say, okay, this is not only the code that I'm interested in, but what about the data? How did you train it? And how did you build it? And all this information. So we have different things about data set, about the AI, the build processes and security and stuff like that. But we're not done, right? So at some point we understood that we were talking about the bill of materials as if it were something static. And then after talking to each other, we found out that each of us, many of us, were looking at something different, right? As you develop software, and it's, you develop upper left at 11 o'clock, let's say, and then you build, and then you deploy and stuff like that. One was talking about the source files, and the other was talking about the executables in the installer. Right, all of these are the same software, but you're looking at it for a completely different view. Right, so we went ahead. There was a big effort a couple of years ago, and we defined that, we're not talking about one SBOM, we're talking different types of SBOM, right? It's a different thing when you're looking at your source files, and a different thing that you see what has been installed in my system in order to run this thing. And so work has been done on that front as well. Finishing up with a call for participation. So we have some teams depending on your focus, and the teams are for technical, legal, and outreach. Right, I'm a chairperson for outreach, and I'm participating in everybody else, in every other list. We have mailing lists and meetings and GitHub for everything. And we have the specific groups for people who are interested in one specific area. They should, participate in a single group so that, they don't get all their afternoons booked by different meetings for participating in everything. Right, and that's all. 3 minutes, perfect.
And here we are. Thank you, Alexios, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Is there a question in the room that we can catch? We have time. Here we are. Wait for the mic to come. And here we are.
Thank you very much, Alexios. I know SPDX from the company, we're using it, and thankfully you provide a standardized list of license identifiers, for example, which is really great, because otherwise you cannot deal with all the different names of the licenses. And do you also deal with with tools that get this information, or do you just create the standard, the specs for the documents and the components, or are you also getting the license information, for example, for packages?
Great question. Thank you very much for that. I did not have more time to delve into much. So this SPDX project as a project, okay, I have a minute. We're doing three things. One is the spec, and that was the focus of this presentation, the specification of how to form the information, how to represent it, right? The second is what you mentioned, the license list. So we keep authoritative list of licenses with a very short identifier, so everyone say MIT, and we all understand what the license is. And there are many variations of MIT with different names, right? And so that's the license list. And the third one is tools. We're not providing, the tools. There are. I can speak a lot about more tools about that. We're concerned more about the low level, so creating libraries that can read and write and process the format, and then we expect others to build tools on top of them, right? And we have a couple of tools of our own, and as far as I know, most of the tools that are around use our libraries in order to do that, right? So there are tools that, again, differentiating them by functionality. There are tools that create, that process. If you have two data, you want to merge them, you want to compare them, all the functionality goes into a higher level. So, these are two. And the new thing is, because I mentioned, as we have this, the license list, we're now expanding into, for example, cryptographic algorithm lists. And we're going to have a list of all marketing algorithms with a short identifier so that we can all speak again and understand, okay, we're talking about this algorithm and not the other one. So, yeah.
Great, interesting. Thanks a lot.